Fun fact, the Glencoe Village Board is also the Glencoe Golf Club Board of Directors. Little known fact. This is my first in my life Glencoe Golf Board of Directors meeting, but here we are. So I would like to call to order and have a roll call for the December 19th, 2024 Glencoe Golf Club Board of Directors meeting.
Trustee Hallwax.
Here.
You're right. Sorry. Board member Hallwax.
Here.
Board member Listener.
Here.
Board member Malopoulos.
Here.
Board member Underdunk.
Here.
Board member Rubin.
Here.
Board member Scott.
Here.
And President Rowan.
Here. This is now public comment time, but I'm going to do what the chair of the Finance Committee did. Is there anybody in attendance who wants to speak to the golf board meeting on something not on the agenda? If there is, I got a speech to read about the rules of that, but if there isn't, we're skipping it. Nobody here. Okay. The next item of business is consideration of a resolution approving the second amended and restated Glencoe Golf Club agreement. We have talked about this agreement ad nauseum. So circulated to the board. It's public. And I just want to say that we're able to do this now because we just finally, made a deal with the county at Long Last. We approved our agreement on Tuesday. Now's our chance to approve it. Unless there are questions, is there a motion to approve the resolution approving the new agreement?
Motion to approve the new agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We have a roll call, please.
Board member Hallwax.
Yes.
Board member Listener.
Yes.
Board member Malopoulos.
Yes.
Board member Underdunk.
Yes.
Board member Rubin.
Yes.
Board member Scott.
Yes.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
This is a tri-party agreement. It's the Glencoe Golf Club, the Village of Glencoe, and the Cook County Forest Preserve District. You're now one of the parties. You will see the same agreement on your village board agenda when we get to it. But just wanted to make that clear for, I know all the board members know that, or the golf club members know that, but I want the audience to know that as well.
So we'll be back. It's been moved, seconded, and approved. So the golf club board has approved. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned. 3 minutes. Record. All right. It's now time for our regular village board meeting for December 19th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order now, and let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Here.
Trustee Listener.
Here.
Trustee Malopoulos.
Here.
Trustee Underdunk.
Here.
Trustee Rubin.
Here.
Trustee Scott.
Here.
President Rowan.
Here. All right, the first item on the agenda is, before I do that, we're not home. We're at the Central School. So we don't have our video set up. So we're not live streaming the meeting, but there will be a video recording available on the village's YouTube channel. So welcome everybody to Central School. And thank you to the School District 35 for letting us use their excellent facilities. Though I note, the bathrooms are a little small. All right, the next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. We have circulated minutes for the regular meeting from November 21, 2024, and the closed session minutes from October 17th, 2024. Unless there are questions, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All the minutes are approved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. This portion of the meeting allows for those in attendance to address the board regarding non-agenda items. you want to talk about something on the agenda, you don't need to talk now. We'll wait till you're on the agenda. Anyone who wants to talk about something either on the agenda or not should fill out a written speaker form, which we have at the back of the room, and submit it to the village manager. That's him. The time for public comment is for an opportunity for you to make comments to the village board. We will listen to everything you have to say, but this will not ordinarily be a time for the board to discuss or engage on the issue. If it's appropriate, the board may ask the village manager or other village staff to respond to questions or issues raised, and we would do that at a later date. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. To be fair to all, we'll strictly enforce this rule. And per our established policy, we'll limit all public comments to a total of 30 minutes. We ask all speakers to be respectful, civil, and not repetitive. And we ask that all members of the audience refrain from any applauding or making any other comments during or after any speaker. With that, is there anyone who wants to speak on a non-agenda item? No. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the reports of committees. The first normal report we have is the committee of the whole. We didn't have one of those this month. I usually do those reports, so I'm going to be less loquacious than usual. No report. Next item is the finance committee, which we just had. Now I'll ask trustee Rubin to report on the finance committee.
As you say, we just had our committee report, our committee meeting, and bottom line is we had a very solid finish to the year financially. The village is in good shape financially. Sales taxes continue to trend down. That's something for us to continue to watch by about 10% this year, and that has been taken into account actually in the preparation of the annual budget, which will be talked about later in this meeting. Essentially, expenditures are pretty much as expected. They vary a bit from the original budget, but they always do. Many of the reasons have to do with timing, overtime, et cetera, typical things, all of which have been discussed at these meetings throughout the year. Inflation is something we have to continue to watch. It continues to nag. And while the headline number is 2.7%, we've certainly seen issues about that being bigger in terms of commodity supplies, even services that we have to pay for. So we have to be thoughtful and be thinking about that as well. But as I said, in general, we're in very solid shape. That's the report.
Thanks for that report. The next report is the Plan Commission. We'll be hearing a little more from the Plan Commission. The trustee listeners are representative on that.
Yes, the Plan Commission met yesterday for an exterior appearance review for the awnings and signage for the new restaurants at 668 Vernon, the space formerly occupied by Honey Butter Fried Chicken. The new restaurants will be Mentor's Deli and Picnic, which is a salads and grain bowls restaurant. The proposed improvements were approved at the meeting last night. And as you know, the Plan Commission has been very involved for the last year and a half on the new comprehensive plan. And of course, on our agenda tonight is consideration of an ordinance approving the plan.
Thanks for that report. More about the Plan Commission later. Okay, the next report is the Golf Advisory Committee, and trustee Hallwax is our representative on that.
Thank you. More good news from the golf course. The weather in November was very mild, and it provided the background for record-breaking results. So revenues exceeded budget by 85% in November, again due to the warm weather and also low amounts of rain. And so we had over 45,000 rounds of golf were played in 24. So this breaks the former record in 2021 by 900 rounds. It's amazing, and considering some of our competitors were back open this year. And the golf course is participating in the National Municipal Golf Study. This is offered through the National Golf Course Owners Association, and it's focused on financial benchmarks. The primary objective of the study is to provide a clear financial picture for municipal golf course operations and an educational forum. That's it.
Thanks for that report. Next report is the Sustainability Task Force, and Trustee Mihalopoulos is going to report on that.
Good evening, everyone. At our last meeting, which was on December 4th, we discussed various ideas that are now within the village's power to regulate under home rule. The leadership also took note of these ideas, and they're planning to discuss with the village leadership how to determine which ideas are feasible and should be investigated more closely. There is also significant discussion about the organization of the STF and how to best develop and present new ideas and programs. The STF Sustainable Business Group reported that they met with the village's reconstituted business services team, and they brainstormed ideas about how to engage the Glencoe business community about sustainable practices. We also briefly reviewed our 2024 accomplishments, finalized next year's goals, and we set our 2025 meeting schedule. Our next meeting is on January 28th.
Thanks for that report. The next report concerns the Council for Inclusion and Community. Our representative on that is Trustee Scott.
Thank you. The GCIC met on Monday, December 2nd, and began with updates from the Community Relations, Communications, Events, and Integrating Community Feedback subcommittees. The primary point of conversation focused on Light the Lights, at which the GCIC was represented at both the table outside Village Hall as well as in a sensory room at the Glencoe Public Library. The council discussed the effectiveness of the room, which was attended by 18 total families throughout the night, and as well as lessons learned for future events. Additionally, the GCIC discussed survey questions to be included in the post-event survey, as well as directives for a survey to be issued in 2025 with a wider scope. Finally, the council discussed a summary of 2024 and looked ahead to 25, which will be continued at the January meeting, which will be held on Monday, January 6th at 5:30 p.m.
Thanks for that report. And last, we're going to have two reports from Trustee Ondergard. First, the Preservation Commission and the Tree Commission. So Trustee Ondergard, let me start with the Preservation Commission.
Thank you very much. The Preservation Commission met on December 3rd. The motion permit application was filed for an honorary landmark, existing honorary landmark at 794 Greenwood. This request was a carryover from the last meeting. The home was locally landmarked in 1993 and has significant historic and architectural value. It's the former home of Village President Ronald Calhoun. Despite the commission's best efforts to explore alternatives, the developer intends to demolish the existing structure and construct a new home. We also met with the Glencoe Library Executive Director, Andrew Kim. He addressed the commission to provide an update on the proposed renovation and expansion of the library building. Director Kim explained that the project is in the early stages of development. After holding community presentations and a community open house, there appears to be a consensus that any expansion should use traditional materials with sensitivity to Wyman Green and Village Hall. And finally, the commission received an application for an upgrade to an existing certified landmark status from the owner of 225 Hazel, who originally had applied for an honorary landmark. This higher level of protection also opens the avenue for special tax considerations. A public hearing on that proposal will be held at the next Preservation Commission meeting on January 7th, after which it will be forwarded to the Board of Trustees for final approval. The applicant is also pursuing state landmark status. The next Preservation Commission meeting is on January 7th at 5:30.
Before you go to the Tree Commission, I think it's Roland Calhoun, not Ronald.
Okay.
You have to have been here at the time, although I might have
Okay.
been sick.
Roland.
Roland Calhoun
Okay.
used to go into the 4th of July parade riding one of those old style 1890s, I don't know if they're bicycles, but they're cycles with the big wheel in front and the little wheel behind it. and Roland Calhoun was a character. And a
Is that
fixture
the
in Glencoe.
bicycle statue over at the train station?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, okay,
So and
terrific.
Roland Calhoun,
Terrific.
I
Okay,
can
thank
imagine-
you for the
I can
correction.
imagine saving his house. I note that there will be no such requests for my house. Okay, tree commission.
Okay, the tree commission. The tree commission, on December 9th, the tree commission held their final meeting of the year at Village Hall. Updates were provided by the village staff regarding the village's 2024 tree planting program, the annual leaf collection, the new buckthorn collection, which is being very successful, holiday tree collection, and collaboration with the park districts for a joint tree nursery in 2025. The commission discussed details of tree preservation for the Forest Edge subdivision and the 5 Blair Lane subdivision. And let's see. And approved a proposed concept for a vote for a Tree of the Year program based on our residents' favorite trees visible from the village right away. I think this will be program. We won't do this program right away. We'll need to wait till the trees leaf out in the spring. Finally, the tree commission requested a learning opportunity with development services. The team there early this next year to learn more about how our development standards impact trees. And I wanted to say that when I first was appointed as the liaison to the tree commission, I wondered what it was we were going to do. And now I'm up to my neck in doing this. Thank you.
Thanks for that report. You volunteered. And just like in the army, that's usually a mistake. Okay, that concludes the reports of committees. The next item on the agenda is the reports of officers. And first, we have the village manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Just a few items on my report this evening. The first relates to some upcoming changes to our building permit plan review and inspection process. So starting January 1st, the village will be transitioning its partnership for building permit plan review and inspection services from HR Green to Safe Built. Since the board's approval of this new contract last month, staff has been working with both parties to ensure the transition's as smooth as possible. Plan submittals will remain the same before and after January 1st, but online inspection scheduling will change. For inspections scheduled to take place for a little more than the next week until December 31st, the current practice of submitting the request through the village's website will be the best option. And then for those inspections scheduled after January 2nd or later, for now, those requests are being asked to be submitted by calling Safe Built directly or emailing them at ilinspections@safebuilt.com. We have all of this information on the village's website. And it is actually pretty straightforward once you get there. But what we are trying to do is to make it as seamless as possible for those that are in the building permit process right now. It will be easier after January 2nd when we only have a single process. So we do appreciate the community's patience with this transition. Taylor and his team have been working hard to make sure that this goes very well. A few holiday announcements. Village Hall offices will be closed at noon on December 24th and 31st, and all day on December 25th and January 1st. We will reopen at 8 a.m. Thursday, December 26th and Thursday, January 2nd. As the federal holidays both fall on Wednesdays this year, there is no impact to garbage or recycling collection throughout these holidays. So your regular garbage days will stay your regular garbage days. Those holiday tree collections do begin starting January 8th. Trees can be placed at the curb. We just ask that they be completely cleaned off before that happens. And then just one more indulgence, if you will, as this is the last meeting of the year with a very full agenda covering the gamut of work undertaken by staff, by the board, the village's advisory commissions, and many others, I think it's worth taking just a moment to reflect on how much has taken place in 2024. By some wonder of calendaring, there is a trifecta of policy and planning documents, each being considered this evening. The village's 2025 budget, which is a one-year spending and policy plan for the community, and which also includes our 10-year community investment program, which helps us plan for the important infrastructure and equipment we will build and purchase for the next decade. The new 3-year strategic plan that offers priorities, initiatives, and goals through 2027. And as has been mentioned, the comprehensive plan, which is an at least 20-year land use planning tool that will guide our community for a generation. Each has significant importance and each is tied together, interrelated in their focus, which is to fulfill our mission to our community. I'm really proud of the work that's been done and that all of these have come together before the board tonight, and they collectively have involved literally hundreds upon hundreds of hours of work and engagement by so many here in our community. In addition, there are several other items on tonight's consent agenda that are particularly meaningful, including a new service agreement with our community partners at Family Service of Glencoe that right sizes the long-time contract for services that FSG provides the village and specifically the Public Safety Department. A new intergovernmental agreement with the Glencoe Public Library that outlines and memorializes a long-held partnership, and an updated land use agreement with the Forest Preserves of Cook County that reinforces a long intergovernmental relationship that began in 1921 and will now continue at least until 2049 and will accommodate the construction of our new clubhouse in a way that will best serve Glencoe and the regional community. We're very proud to work so closely with all of our partners in government. So it's a big night and a good one to celebrate the excellent work done by our staff team. Particularly, I am deeply proud every day to be a part of this amazing team and surprised every day with what they can do in service to our community. It hasn't been an easy year, what with many new faces and new organizational structures and some organizational issues with technology and the like, but I continue to be immensely impressed with how our team has been able to perform under pressure to keep Glencoe the amazing place that it has always been. We're all looking forward to the many successes ahead of us in 2025. And with that, I wish everyone a happy holidays on behalf of the staff.
Thanks for that helpful report, particularly the heads up on some of the issues that we're going to cover in the consent agenda, all of which we'll get to talk about before, but I appreciate the village manager calling out some of these. It's time for the village president's report. Let me start by thanking the Forest Preserve for working with us and getting the golf club deal done. It's been a long haul. You know, they didn't give us everything we asked for, and I assured our county board representative, Scott Britton, that we're not done asking. So we're done for this year. But it was a long haul. We worked hard with them. They worked with us, and we are grateful they got it done. And we're grateful for our county board rep, Scott Britton, for helping us do it. It's the end of the year. We're heading into the holidays, and I want to just take this chance to say some of the things I'm grateful for serving as president for the village this year and what I'm looking forward to next year. I'm grateful that Glencoe residents are able to live in our lovely, vibrant village. I think we all know that we're lucky to live here. I'm grateful for Glencoe's employees who provide the services we receive, who maintain the infrastructure we rely on, and through our public safety department, keep us safe. I'm particularly grateful to the village's employees because to the extent that the residents think that the village board has done a good job, I'm not confused about why that is. It's because our staff, our employees are doing a good job and they make us look good. So thank you to them. I am grateful for our smart, thoughtful residents who this year had to decide what to do about home rule. That was not an easy lift. There was well-funded opposition, not based in Glencoe, by the way. There was well-funded opposition that bombarded our residents with misleading information, including several village-wide mailers. I am grateful to our residents who saw through the smoke and voted strongly in favor of home rule. I am grateful to the many residents who volunteered time to serve on our boards and commissions, including the Plan Commission, the Zoning Board, the Golf Advisory Committee, the Council for Inclusion and Community, the Preservation Commission, the Sustainability Task Force, the Public Safety Commission, and that only names some of them. Serving on these boards, commissions, and task forces takes a lot of time and a lot of work. It requires a willingness to make personal sacrifices for the betterment of our village. The village is a better place because of their service, so thank you. I am particularly grateful to the village board members I serve with. By law, and I'm referring to the Open Meetings Act, by law, outside of these formal meetings, we are not allowed to, and we do not spend a lot of time together. But month in and month out, this group brings their commitment, their intelligence, and their temperament together to work for the benefit of our residents in our village. We are lucky, and I am lucky to have the benefit of their service, your service. As this successful year in Glencoe closes, what's in store for next year? Well, let me mention a few things. First, we're going to maintain our first-rate infrastructure, and we're going to continue to provide the superb services that our residents have come to expect. Now that we've been granted home rule authority, we're going to figure out how to best use that authority for the benefit of our residents. We did not count our chickens before they were hatched. They've been hatched, and we're working on it. Third, last year, our residents approved the referendum to replace our century-old golf clubhouse. This year, our architects, our village staff, and an ad hoc committee of residents and the village board work to design a beautiful new clubhouse. But we still need to build it. And because the half of the golf club is on county land, and that includes the clubhouse site, we always needed Forest Preserve approval to build it. But as we discussed, and we just voted on earlier with respect to the golf club board of directors, and we'll get to in a few minutes with respect to this board, the Forest Preserve has now approved the lease. And when I say now, I mean 2 days ago. So it took a while, but it's happened. So next year, we're going to knock down the old clubhouse, and we're going to begin building the new one that we waited so long for. Stella is not going to be trying to kill us anymore.
Well, not because of that.
Not because of that. Fourth, I already said this a lot throughout the year, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But next year, we're going to continue to focus on the truly monumental questions concerning what to do about our 100-year-old water plant. And finally, tonight, the board's going to consider approval of a new comprehensive plan, our first new one since 1996. Next year, we'll begin to consider the opportunities and the questions that this presents to us as a community, including how we might consider redevelopment in the future, particularly in our uptown business district. Those are some of the things the village government will be doing in 2025. On behalf of the board, we're grateful for the opportunity to work on those projects and others, and to serve as your representatives. From all of us, happy holidays and happy New Year. That concludes the village president's report. So now the next item on the agenda is the public hearing and consideration of an ordinance making appropriations for corporate purposes of the village of Glencoe for calendar year beginning January 1, 25 and ending December 31, 25. This is a public hearing, and I'll ask our Deputy Village Manager and CFO, Vicki Larson, to present. Vicki.
Okay. On the agenda are a number of items. Thank you. Related to calendar year 2025 budget, the first of which being the annual appropriations ordinance. The annual appropriations ordinance is required by statute. And we will go through these one at a time. Actually, if you can go back one more time.
Village attorney is trying to keep me from blowing it here. So let me say that I have formally opened the public hearing. That's happening, and our CFO and Deputy Village Manager present.
Thank you. We'll rewind.
Gotta have your lawyer present.
So the item under consideration for the appropriations hearing is the appropriations ordinance. This is item number 6 on the agenda. But I also want to touch on a number of the items on consent because those are related to the appropriations ordinance and they do warrant a little bit of discussion before we go ahead and take a vote on that. So Margaret, our assistant CFO, and I are going to review these items one at a time, starting with the appropriations ordinance. So the appropriation ordinance is required by Illinois statute, sets forth the legal spending authority for the village for the coming year, and it is based on the calendar year 2025 budget that was comprehensively reviewed by the village board at the finance committee meeting on November 19th. This sets forth the maximum legal spending limit, which is set at 110% of the line item budget. One thing I would note is that this does not somehow surpass the village's purchasing policy. This is just setting our village limit, and that all of the contracts and expenditures associated with this budget would still go through our normal process. The total appropriations ordinance is $73,302,707. And the breakdown of expenditures by fund is on the screen. You can see in the left column, each fund's budget is listed and the corresponding appropriations limit. In accordance with statute, staff did publish notice of this hearing in the Chicago Sun-Times on December 5th and the Glencoe News on December 12th. The next item, this is actually on the consent agenda, is the budget ordinance. The budget process has been a long process. We started with financial policy review at the August Finance Committee meeting, continued with discussion of the 5-year financial forecast that's included in the budget document in October. That was reviewed in detail. And then, as I noted, at the November 19th Finance Committee meeting, there was a comprehensive review of all of the operating draft budget by department in detail, as well as the 10-year community investment program and the property tax levy. So that all happened in November. The total budget as presented this evening is $49,018,086 in revenue and $59,036,263 in expenditures. I will note the village has a balanced budget. You will see that the expenditure number is higher than the revenue, and that is because of a planned use of reserves. In accordance with the village's fund balance policy, we do allow one-time spending on single capital investments, reinvestment into the community. So that is why our expenditures do exceed revenue. But when you look at just the operating revenue, our operating revenue in all funds exceeds or is equal to the operating expenditures to ensure the sustainability of this budget through 2025 and beyond. Including the pension funds, those numbers jump up quite a bit to 53.8 million on the revenue side and 63.5 on the expenditure side. The reason we separate those out is because the pension funds are largely controlled by statute. So the village has very little control over those. The one-time use of reserves for capital are detailed in the budget, but just highlighting the general fund is planned to draw down 4.8 million in capital, motor fuel tax 100,000, Golf Club Fund Reserve is a $2.3 million contribution to the golf project that was just mentioned. Capital Fund Reserve of 15.3 million, again, the lion's share of that for the golf club fund or the golf club project. And the Water Fund Reserve is 3.1 million. The 10-year community investment program that's included in the budget includes $100.8 million in planned reinvestment into the community, into our infrastructure, with 23.4 million proposed next year alone. And obviously the highlight of that is the golf club house project. And the village is planning a bond issue in early 2025 to fund that in accordance with the referendum that was approved by Glencoe voters. Moving on, this has a summary of the budget ordinance and the budget by fund. You can see the detail, operating revenue and expenditure, the operating surplus and deficit. I would just note that that golf club number is an actual funding transfer, so that would not count against the operating budget. In total, you can see the one-time capital expense planned for next year is $23,467,000 across all funds. And if everything goes as planned, the village would project that our general fund balance would end the year at 43.4% of operating expenditures, which is well in excess of the village's fund balance policy. And a similar story for the water fund. We highlight these two funds because they are our major operating funds. If everything goes as planned, the water fund would end the year at 92% of operating expenditures. Just want to highlight these few items because we are presenting what we think to be a financially responsible budget. Moving on to the property tax levy. This is item E on your agenda. This is for tax year of 2024. It's based off of this year's operating expenditures to be collected in 2025. This was reviewed by the Finance Committee on October 15th, and again at the village's public hearing on November 21st, which was similarly published in the Glencoe News. So the village's property tax levy not only includes our general corporate levy to help fund our operations, but also the village's required police pension contribution, our contributions toward debt service, and the Glencoe Public Libraries levy. So all inclusive, including the Glencoe Library, the village is requesting a levy of $18,483,666. Overall, that change in levy is 2.65%. This year, the village is continuing to abide by its commitment to the community to abide by the property tax cap, which was the board's commitment that was done in August and then reaffirmed last month. So the property tax levy as proposed is in line with that commitment. Item F includes the Washington Place Special Service Area. As the board may recall, this special service area was formed at the request of residents in 2015 to improve a private road on Washington Place. The residents agreed to pay for the repairs to the private road for a period of time through 2030. And because they requested to repay this in equal amounts for each home, the village does self-administer the special service area levy, and we are required to pass a levy for this each year, even though the village administers it. So this would be an annual levy of $25,750 through 2030. Turn it over, I'll give you a break from me, turn it over to Margaret for the fee and fine.
Thank you, Deputy Village Manager CFO Larson. Good evening. Item G on the consent agenda is the fee and fine schedule resolution for calendar year 2025. As part of the budget development process, staff annually reviews various fees, fines, and charges for services, and the calendar year 2025 budget includes several proposed changes to fees. Water rates are increasing by 6%, which is in line with the water rate study assumptions. Sanitary sewer rates are increasing 10% to cover costs related to mandates made by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And there are $3.7 million of scheduled infrastructure improvements over the next 10 years in the in the CIP. The general collection service fee is increasing by 10%, which is to ensure that the village can consistently and adequately fund resources in the future to be able to fund all of the programs that the fee was originally created for, especially for the subsidy for road infrastructure. The building permit per square foot cost will increase from $7.50 to $8.25 per square foot. This is a 10% increase, and this increase will still keep us in line with other municipalities in the area. There are 3 updates made to the zoning code fees, but none are resulting in increased fees. They're just minor adjustments to the fee and fine schedule that just were administrative corrections. There are a few other minor adjustments to the schedule for removing duplicate, obsolete, or fees no longer used. The golf club driving range rates will increase slightly, and the senior membership card will now be a flat $35 fee. The golf club will still continue to use a dynamic pricing module for all their other fees. All the details of these increases and changes can be found in your board packet, starting on page 119. If there's no other questions, I'll move to my next agenda item. Item H on the consent agenda is the multi-year contracts resolution for calendar year 2025. Every year, as part of the budget process, the village reviews all multi-year contracts greater than $25,000, and we bring them before the board for review and approval in accordance with the village's purchasing policy. These contracts and payments are routine, and funds for these contracts are included in the calendar year 2025 budget. Are there any questions on the multi-year contract list? Item I on the consent agenda is the supplemental appropriation ordinance and corresponding budget amendment for the calendar year 2024. Each December, a supplemental appropriations ordinance and budget amendment is brought before the board in accordance with village policies. And this is the second annual amendment brought before you for calendar year 2024. While preparing the budget, we do our best to plan for all projects and expenses, but as much as we try to anticipate changes throughout the year, the budget is a fluid document and circumstances do change. For calendar year 2024, we're requesting an additional $2.1 million in spending authority for items that change throughout the year that we have previously discussed with the Finance Committee and Board. Typically, we wait until the end of the year to look at items that have or will exceed the budget. And we also look to see if resources from additional revenues can cover these costs. We then bring this item before the board for approval tonight. This year, revenues have exceeded budget in some areas and are available to cover all the expenditures in all the funds except for the Capital Projects Fund. But the Capital Projects Fund has bond proceeds from a previous bond issue that are able to cover the additional costs. In the packet, there's a detailed outline of all of the items that have caused changes from what we were anticipating versus what has happened. And I'll review just a few of those for you right now. In the general fund, additional funds were needed for part of our annual merit program. And some of that was also related to the reorganization of the departments in the village. There was an increase in some recruitment expenses and overtime in public safety due to vacancies and backfilling shifts while other new staff attended training. Public safety also purchased another flock license plate reader and public safety vehicles, which were approved by the board earlier this year. The last item for the general fund was the completion of the roll call room renovation. It was pushed from calendar year 2020, pushed into calendar year 2024, and that was after we had finalized the budget, so we're making an adjustment for that cost. For the Capital Projects Fund, expenditures related to the Green Bay Road Stormwater Improvements Project and architectural services for the Glencoe Golf Club were increased. As I mentioned before, bond proceeds are available to cover the cost of the account overage, which was $292,485. For the motor fuel tax and water fund, the expenditures are related to speed feedback signs, higher than anticipated credit card fees, which were based on transaction volume, and personnel costs related to the annual merit program and also the retirement of an employee. The important thing to note is that even though we are adding spending authority of almost $2.1 million, the net impact to the budget is zero in all funds, except for the capital projects funds, which we said will be covered by prior year bond proceeds. we have the additional revenue resources available to cover all of these items. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has at this time.
If I may, just if you'll indulge me for a moment, one thing in the spirit of the holidays, I do want to thank the village board. This process would not be possible without your hours of dedication, reading a 300-page document, and hours spent with staff reviewing all of this. So I want to thank all of you for your help in making this happen. And I'd like to thank our staff in the audience and their staff members as well. This was certainly a team effort, and thank you for that.
Thanks for that presentation. Are there any questions from the board before we ask the audience? This is a hearing, but you know, you guys can hearing. I'm offering first crack to the board. If you had dropped into this meeting and not seen anything else from the village, you could think, whoa, there's all this money and nobody cares. That's not what's happened here. The village board has met, the finance committee has met, we met as the whole group of us met as the finance committee. We went over this thing hook, line, and sinker. So I just want to make it clear to the public, we care, but we've already talked about it a lot. With that, the board members want to say anything, and if not, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public who wants to ask a question or say something about the presentations we've just heard about our appropriation ordinance? Okay, and again, we may have had public comment when we talked about this at length at our prior meetings. Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We need a roll call for this. No, we don't. Okay, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is closed. Okay, now we have another, we need another motion to consider approving the appropriation ordinance that we just had the presentation on. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. For this one, we need a roll call.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Underdog.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries. The appropriation ordinance is approved. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This includes items that have been published online. For the community, they've been reviewed by the board either individually or together as part of our committee of the whole discussions. We don't think they warrant further public discussion, although I note we got a pretty thorough discussion of a lot of the items because they're related to the appropriation ordinance and our budget just a minute ago. Unless there are any questions, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. I think we need a roll call for this.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Underdog.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion to approve the consent agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is regular business. The first item of that is consideration of an ordinance approving a new comprehensive plan for the village of Glencoe. And I would ask our Development Services Director, Taylor Baxter, County Consultant Lee Brown, and our Plan Commission Chair, Bruce Hubbard, to present. Let's start with Taylor.
Thank you, President Rowan, members of the board. This is the final step on what has been a little bit more than 2-year process. And before that 2-year process started, we had several months of the Plan Commission about what we talked about getting this process started. So it's been even a little bit longer than that if you take the ramp up to it. This has been 2 years of cycles of public input, discussion by the Plan Commission, and drafting, feedback, and revision, several rounds of all of those steps. The Plan Commission held a public hearing in November, its November meeting. where the commission heard comments from members of the public and discussed those comments on draft plans in your agenda packet tonight. At the end of that public hearing, the commission unanimously voted to recommend approval of the plan and to pass it on to the village board for final consideration tonight. So that's where we are tonight, at the final step of this process. Here tonight, we have Lee Brown and Francie Lawrence from Teske Associates, who led our planning team, as well as Bruce Hubbard from, who is the chairman of the commission. Lee and Francie are going to talk through the process, the background of what the planning process involved. And Bruce will also touch on really the thought process that the Plan Commission went through, particularly with regard to the public feedback that we heard throughout this process, including at the public hearing last month. I believe there are members of the public here also who may be interested in additional comments this evening. With that, I will turn it over to Lee.
Well, good evening. I'm not going to laugh at Nikki's long-term. This is long-term. This took us quite a number of meetings. I present to you what was happening at the year that the last comprehensive plan was put in place, hoping that it doesn't make you feel as old as it makes me feel. Derek Jeter wins the AL Rookie of the Year. That was a long time ago. As I was going through the process of preparing the draft ordinance for your adoption, I looked at the comprehensive plan in the statutes, which allows us to put in place this document as a long-term guide for the community. And one of the items in the statute points to the fact that we have to determine what the cost of purchasing a copy of the document is, so that it is on file at the village and you can pick up a copy. And this happens to be my copy that I've had with me since the adoption, $10 a piece. We won't be, we have to include that in the ordinance, but the reality is the difference between our existing comprehensive plan built in 1996 and our current comprehensive plan is that it is online. It's available to every resident, every business operator to understand and look at and be involved in as it continues to provide its guidance. So as a web-based document, it's more accessible than what we charge at the front desk for a hard copy. It's easier to update, which means that we hope there will be regular review of this at the Plan Commission, and as importantly, as a guide to your decision-making on investments in the community, as you make your implementation steps, you will need to update the last chapter in this document, which is the implementation schedule. I'm going to ask Francie to step up and quickly talk about the meat of the community engagement process itself. Welcome.
Thank you. So while much of the analysis and the study that takes place and leads up to the plan recommendations is fairly technical by nature, the ultimate document is not. It's really intended to be a statement of the community's vision and the values that Glencoe residents and leadership hold for the future. So this was part of the decision behind the name All In Glencoe. So our team, alongside the Plan Commission, worked really closely to design a very wide-reaching and multi-pronged outreach approach, as you can see here, in the range of activities that were conducted for the planning process. So the intent was to provide many different avenues of two-way communication for the community to learn about the process and for us to receive community input and ideas. Website stats from allinglencoe.org as of today show that we received over 7,000 views from 3,400 visitors, with 300 people subscribed as followers of the project, receiving regular updates as we went through the process. And there were hundreds of additional comments on our online ideas map and comment map as well. At the public hearing, the Plan Commission reiterated their support for the engagement process that has been done and expressed that they feel that the community was sufficiently involved in this process and that we have incorporated comments we've heard throughout.
we understand that there's always an interest in understanding this process itself, but you have been engaged in this process, and we have taken this to you on a number of occasions. The public hearing clearly was the sort of culmination of the public engagement. But as we went along, you had input, Plan Commission certainly had its significant input. When last you saw the document, we made a change related to the strategy D. You'll remember that there is a strategy in the document that speaks to the question of whether or not we could see potential introduction of non-single family detached homes within any portion of the community. And the language in the document talks about studying that as an opportunity, but the village board suggested, and we included a change to include the word if, study if, how, and where the zoning could potentially accommodate some other building types within the residential environment. Also, during the process, we had a number of graphic images to help the Plan Commission understand the potential impact of infill development and redevelopment within the central business district. In doing that, it allowed the commission itself to better understand the impact of volume and height and density within that area. But we found that the reactions from the public was that they misinterpreted it as being an encouragement or the look of what future full build out might be, as opposed to using it as a tool to understand where we would have the potential for guiding development within the central district. And so we changed by making sure that the graphics don't try to present an end look within the community, that the language in there clearly identifies the need for study on any individual property or development within the central business district. Bruce is going to speak to these issues as the commission actually responded to public comment. You're welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you all. The plan, as you know, deals with the character of the community, governance, sustainability, inclusion, all the matters that you were talking about in your committee reports. And almost all of the comments that the Plan Commission has been addressing since the open house in July have dealt more narrowly with the issue of density and land use. So I would like to remind the board, first of all, that the plan is much larger than just a few land use decisions. It's represents a sort of sustained conversation among members of the Plan Commission and residents for quite a while. And I'm looking around and I realize at this time, 4 of the trustees tonight we've served together on the Plan Commission. So many of you are aware of these issues. When we reported to the Committee of the Whole, I think that was in September, I mentioned that there were about 3 primary issues that have been raised as a result of the open house. The potential height of buildings in downtown, the possibility of something other than single family in other areas of the village, and the encouragement of multifamily buildings along Green Bay Road and selected corridors. Those 3 ideas generated the most comments. And so after the open house and in a number of meetings at the Plan Commission, we debated among ourselves, had we taken into account that concern? Did we understand what that concern reflected? Were we being careful enough about this in our recommendations? The plan has a section on urban form and urban design guidelines. And what we decided as a Plan Commission is that you really need to go back and look at those design guidelines and understand how they constrain all of these future decisions. We don't want the entire downtown to be the same height. We want there to be a variety of buildings. We want articulated facades. We want step backs. We want underground parking. We want the continuation of a pedestrian landscape. We want all of the pedestrian and aesthetic goals and ideals of the downtown plan. Gary, I think you were on the plan commission with me when we did that. So the one suggestion that we consider height in a very narrowly described area of the downtown block, the most intense area, was taking into account all of those factors and not saying that the entire block should be this height. But please use this suggestion as a tool to achieve the best possible result. We don't know what will be before all of us in 5 years or 10 years. But by having a residential plan development ordinance, for example, and being able to articulate these goals in part of our legislative arrangement, and not just sitting down with the developer saying, really can't say anything about you because all we have is our straight zoning. We really need this kind of flexibility. So I think in thinking through all of those issues with urban design and form and the guidelines that we have, the Plan Commission grew to become more and more comfortable with the idea that we weren't going overboard with this. I think Lee mentioned that with respect to other than single family zoning, that we changed the plan to specify we're talking about study, consider, explore if and how this might occur. I think the two largest comments that we probably, if you were to summarize, if you had like one of those word images that said, what did everyone talk about? They talked about preserving the character of the community. And they talked about if there's some way to have other types of housing so that people who've lived here for a long time could stay in the community, so that our children or our young people could possibly move into the community. Those two objectives are not the same. And so we have to provide in the document for some way for us to think about how to accommodate those worthwhile objectives, but they don't automatically harmonize. I think I've touched probably on most of the issues that we talked about the most after the open house and after receiving these comments. If you look at the minutes of the public hearing about the plan, many of the comments from the residents who were there are neatly summarized there. I don't think they differ much from what I'm describing. I think everyone on the Plan Commission tried to remind our residents and ourselves that this is our community too. This is the community that we want as well. And we think that this is just giving you advice about how to think about these issues, how to think about the tensions in the future, and possibly provide you guidelines and tools as we navigate through these issues in coming years. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer as best I can.
Thanks for that presentation. Like the budget, we've all been here before, we've discussed this. I am grateful for all the work that's been put into this. Do any of the board members want to ask any questions before we open this up to see if any members of the audience want to say anything about the comprehensive plan draft that we're considering tonight? Taylor's there. Oh.
Yes, a few words. Again, thank you very much. I want to speak for a moment about comprehensive plan adoption. Congratulations to the Plan Commission on completing their work on the comprehensive plan update. It's been almost 30 years since the last update. While we've benefited from a few tweaks in the downtown plan, the world has changed a lot in the past 30 years, and so has Glencoe. Now it's time to take stock of what we have and where we want to go in the future. Especially important in this process were the outreach efforts to the community. Thanks to our citizens, commissioners, institutions, and advisors for participating in this venture. As General Eisenhower said during World War II, this is early on. This is the end of the beginning. There's still work to be done. We need to define, prioritize, and pursue our actions. We will do this through new or revised policies, regulations, investments, and initiatives. Let's not put this plan on the shelf. Please join me on this journey to build even a better Glencoe. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other board members want to say anything before we give the audience a chance to weigh in? Are there comments from the audience about the plan we're considering tonight? Mr. Gallagher.
Trying to say something.
Come on up.
Thank you.
I warn you, you're being timed.
Oh, kind. The plan commission's done a terrific job. I really am very impressed with the document. I only have, and Bruce and all, I'm a broken record for them because I'm one of those ones who's been saying, but what about the central business district? And we all agree that we want to keep the charm of the village. That's tantamount to all of us. I think we can also agree that really the real charm of the village is north of Hazel. Nothing to mean south of Hazel, but you know, the maintenance building, the parking lot, not too charming. So what our concern, my concern has been, and I've talked to others about it, is where we say, okay, I think the section says that the central business district, block 7, 8, 9, 8, 9 being south of Hazel, may be appropriate for greater than 3-story development. That's the kind of the language where we're hung up on, from my perspective. Given that the charm is north of Hazel, let's let the development be south of Hazel and make that where it may be appropriate to go greater than 3 stories, 4 stories, 4.5. But the central business at the core, where the real heart of the charm of Glencoe is, let's preserve that and make sure it stays at the 3-story limit. Now, the plan commission, I asked why did they take the position on block 7? And they said basically that traditional planning says that you have the most dense buildings in the center and you thin out from there, which I understand, but this is not a traditional situation. This is Glencoe. And, you know, I just think we need to think about that language. Can we just move it back to south of Hazel and preserve the north of Hazel position for the charm of this village to be sustained? That was my only comment. The rest of the plan, I can, you know, it's a terrific plan. Well done. And what I love is the accountability provision. So we'll actually make it happen. So anyway, thank you for your patience. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience on the plan? Okay. Let me just say, the village board has been part of the discussions about this comprehensive plan document. It's been amended to reflect comments from the public and from the board. That includes concerns about height. Let me say, from my point of view, none of the decisions we're making with respect to the plan are final decisions. I understood Mr. Brown's presentation, Taylor's Baxter's presentation, Mr. Hubbard's presentation, and Dudley's point. You know, this is the end of the beginning. And the way I look at this is, what I don't want to do is lock us in to really anything where we don't have the ability to make the smart decision. And I think the sort of boundaries that have been created, and they're softer the boundaries because this is just a plan, but the boundaries created by the plan we're going to be voting on tonight, they look sensible to me, and I think they get us in a place where we can make as a community and as a village board thoughtful decisions going forward, and that's sort of the way I think it's doing what we want. I don't know in sort of concept whether the traditional idea of being you know, taller at the center of uptown and getting shorter as you move out, or whether Mr. Gallagher's point, which, you know, I get it, is there's no great beauty in our public works garage, and so you can do what you want with that, but there is great beauty in the uptown business district, so leave that alone. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I don't think we'll know until we see specific plans and we decide and the community decides what they like and what seems sensible. So notwithstanding the thoughtfulness of Mr. Gallagher's presentation, and I'm not saying he's wrong, but I don't want to make that commitment now. So I think the Plan Commission and our planners got it right in the draft that we have. If there aren't other comments, is there a motion to approve the plan as it's written? And
the ordinance.
The ordinance approving the plan. Or is there more than anybody wants to say? And again, if you just dropped in now, you'd think, oh, these people don't care. But in fact, we've had a lot of meetings about this. We've talked about it. And the Gallaghers have talked to me about this. I think the first time was on the 4th of July. And I promise you, we're not ignoring you. We take you seriously, you know, and not only because you're some of the volunteers, not only because you're like at the top of the list of the volunteers that we're grateful for. Even if you've never volunteered for anything, we would take your thoughtful comments seriously. But I explained where I come out. And anybody else want to say anything, or is there a motion to approve the ordinance approving the plan?
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We need a roll call.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Underdog.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yeah.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion approving the plan carries. And I will take the point of all the presenters and Trustee Underdog. Okay, we're just starting. And we really need to decide what to do about a lot of stuff, including our public works garage site. When I was on the village board in probably 1986, a longtime Glencoe resident named Stan Schumann, who people who were there back in the day will remember, because Stan was sort of an important part of this town. He came to the board and he stood up and he said, you know, I went to the village board in 1955 when they were planning on building the public works garage. And I said, are you people crazy? This is a primo part of uptown and you should not be doing this. And he was ignored. He was obviously right. And so one of the things that we will be thinking about is, okay, can we do anything about this 70 years later, or is it too late? I don't know the answer. We're going to be looking at all this stuff. And the commitment I will make to the community is we're going to do our best to get it as right as in hindsight we can say they got it wrong in 1955. Okay. Next item on the agenda is consideration of an ordinance opting the Glencoe Park District, the school districts, the library district, and the village of Glencoe out of Cook County's paid leave ordinance, which is section 42-1 through 42-10 of the county code for the village of Glencoe. And I'll ask our deputy manager and CFO, Nikki Larson, to present. Thank you for your presentation.
Just a little background on this item. In March of 2023, the state of Illinois adopted the Paid Leave for All Workers Act, which requires employers to provide 40 hours of paid leave annually. The act that was passed at the state level exempted school districts and park districts, but as you may recall from a recent change in village policy, it did not exempt municipalities. Also in 2023, Cook County passed a paid leave act as well that is set to take effect in January of 2025. This act mirrors the paid leave act that was passed by the state. but provides no exemptions for school district, park districts, or municipalities. This poses operational, financial, and administrative challenges to our partner agencies at the park district, the school district, and the library. We've received outreach from our partner agencies with information about projected costs that this unfunded mandate may impose upon them. The park district has indicated that this act could cost them as much as $234,000 a year. Specifically for paid leave that would be required for part-time or seasonal employees. As you can imagine, the park district has a lot of those throughout the year to fund or to run their programming. And likewise, School District 35 has indicated that this may cost them as much as $200,000 a year, applying leave for part-time employees such as substitute teachers. Also, part of this cost would be for backfilling employees that would have time off, but didn't previously have time off. There's also a significant administrative burden for creating such programs that did not exist previously. The village has launched its own program in accordance with the state act. That cost the village about $14,000 in 2023 alone, essentially, again, in an unfunded mandate. We have had communications with Commissioner Britton, who has tried to raise this issue at the county level and was unsuccessful in having them change their ordinance. So he did encourage the village to take action. So on the agenda this evening is an opt-out ordinance. This would be one of the village's first actions as a home rule community. We'll have the opportunity to alleviate our residents from the cost of this unfunded mandate, to avoid higher fees that may come from our partner agencies to try to cover the cost of this program, and give them a little bit of flexibility to offer benefit programs to their employees as they see fit and not necessarily in accordance with this act. We do have representatives from the school district present if you have any questions from them, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this item as well.
So I'm good. Any questions from the board members? If, thank you to the school district and for the governments that reached out to us to ask us to do this. As Deputy Manager Larson says, we've also been encouraged to do this by our county board representative. We tried to get the county board to do it. They wouldn't. So, okay, here we go. Is there a motion to approve the opt-out ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Let's have a roll call.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Onderdunk.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries. Is this the first home rule thing we've done?
It's our first full meeting of being a home rule.
Would be an item on the
Excluding the
consent
consent agenda. So congratulations on that. Is there any other business from anyone? And if not, is there a motion to adjourn to, or, you know, to move over to a closed session for 22C21 review of minutes and 2C8 security procedures? So let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Onderdunk.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Motion carries. So we're going to move